In this English lesson, I'm going to teach you real English through a podcast. Today's lesson, we're going to study a clip from the Dave Ramsey podcast. If you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, this is a great chance to study an American accent that's a Southern accent because he's from Tennessee. What he's most well known for is giving personal financial advice. And I think financial advice is a really interesting topic to study in English because it kind of applies to everyone in its real life situations. You'll learn a ton of new phrases that we'll break down from this podcast episode. I'll show you the clips and then I'll tell you what the phrases actually mean. So Dave Ramsey, one of his biggest things is to pay off your debt and not live above your means, meaning don't spend too much money, don't spend more money than you have. He uses a lot of quirky Southern phrases, and overall you'll just enjoy hearing a new accent in English, which is so important when you're studying to become a master of English. I'm going to show you a very short clip from the podcast in just a moment here. Before you check it out, make sure to visit my website, englishwithkayla.com. If you want to break down this lesson a bit more with a PDF, a quiz, and a community to ask questions in, you can be my student by joining my membership there. Use the link below. And in this lesson, I'm going to go over all the phrases from this podcast. So hang in there. You've got this. Let's get studying. Let's roll the first clip.
John is in Columbia, South Carolina. Hi, John. Welcome to the Entree Podcast. What's up?
How you doing, Dave?
Better than I deserve. How can I help?
Man, it's kind of a long question. My main question is I feel stuck in my father's business. I'm 23 years old. We got 7 team members, including myself. And me and my wife, about a year ago, just opened up our own small business. Can I kind of tell you the backstory and you shed some guidance on, moving forward?
Sure.
Okay, so this is a call-in show, which means people call in to Dave Ramsey. They talk to him live while he's filming, and they ask him for advice and personal finance advice mainly. So this guy is asking, his name is John. He's only 23 years old. He's very young, and he's from South Carolina, which again, he has that Southern accent you'll hear in the way that he speaks. So he's asking for advice because he says he feels stuck. When you say that you feel stuck in life in general or just in a situation, it means you can't make progress or you feel like you can't make any meaningful change. So here he's just saying in general in his career, he feels stuck. If you are working on writing a book or if you're working on a project at work and you don't know what to do next, you feel like you can't do anything because you don't understand the problem or what's going on, you could say, I feel stuck. When you tell someone, I want to give you the backstory, it means I want to give you more details about the situation or I want to give you more context so that you understand. Maybe if someone comes up to you asking for advice, you might say, hey, give me a little bit of backstory so I can understand everything completely. Sometimes when you say to someone, hey, what's the backstory to your name? It means, how did your parents come up with your name? What was their idea? Or is there a family meaning to your name? And then the caller, John, he says, you can give me some advice moving forward. This means what should I do? If I'm moving forward, what should I do? So here he could have just said, can you give me some advice of what I should do? Instead, he says moving forward because again, he said he feels stuck and he wants to make change. So he says moving forward. Let's roll the next clip and then we'll break down more natural phrases.
So, like I said, it's kind of a long story, but anyways, I've been working for my father for 2 to 3 years now. The biggest thing with it is part of my pay depends on how the store performs, even though I have no say-so on what the employees do or the day-to-day operations of the store. I'm technically the title on me is a project manager. But my position at the store, I'm doing 2 to 3 people's jobs as a one-man show. I've been doing it for the past 2 to 3 years, and every conversation me and my father have had regarding this issue is that his payroll is just too dang expensive, and that if we had more work, then he could hire somebody on to help me out.
John is a little bit rambly here. If you hear the word to ramble, it means you're kind of talking and giving a lot of detail without getting to the main point. So my adjective, which is a very kind of slang, unofficial adjective is he's rambly. Stop being so rambly, like get to the main point. Okay, so John says the biggest thing with working for his dad, instead of just saying the biggest problem or the biggest thing that irritates me, he says the biggest thing. And you'll hear English speakers say the thing is, or meaning the problem is, a lot. So a lot of times we replace problem with thing. And then a really interesting phrase here is the caller, John, says, I have no say so. In English, I usually say I have no say, meaning I have no persuasion or influence over something. A lot of times in my family, if we're planning like an event or a holiday, I'll just say, well, I'll leave it up to them. I have no say. This means I have no influence, or I'm not making the decision at all. John adds the word so, say so. I have no say so in the decision. I think this is probably more Southern, but it's completely acceptable to say anywhere in the United States, I have no say so over the decision. Or you can just say, I have no say over the decision, meaning I don't have influence or power to make a change here. So I would say John is definitely feeling powerless in his father's business. And then the speaker, John, he says that he's talking about the day-to-day operations. So he's saying, like, what are the normal tasks, like what everything has to do day to day? What are the average things that you have to do? This is a really common phrase just to describe your job or your normal routine, my day to day. Roll the next clip because we have more interesting phrases to go over.
Yes, and he is allowing that.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what he kind of invested into it. He bought, a machine to do it. I mean, we already had that CNC, but there's a different machine that goes and measure the boats, and he invested into that machine. So he looks at all the profit coming in as his money, and I have no say so on where to move forward with that business.
Wait. I thought you had a side hustle.
Yes, that is my side hustle, but I'm using his machine to do the side hustle.
And he's taking the money.
Kind of.
Well, there's not a kinda. Who got the $40,000? You or him?
It's just sitting there.
Well, what's the agreement?
There is none. There is no written agreement.
Well, I mean, there's at least a discussion. Does he think it's his money and you think it's yours?
Well, I would like to invest it back into the business, but a conversation
back into the business means it's his.
Exactly, and he told me before it's his money.
So it's not a side hustle. It's his business.
Yes, I get, yes.
You expanded his business by taking his machine and adding $40,000 to the business in gross revenues that it creates a profit of $30,000. If it's his money and he's going to put it back into the business, this is part of running the business. Has nothing to do with a side hustle.
So skipping to this clip, John is talking about this machine that his dad bought for the business that was something kind of new. And he says during the day when he's working, he does this, I don't know exactly what it was. He was pretty vague with it, but some sort of thing for boats with this machine. And he calls it a side hustle. Now, Dave Ramsey is really confused here because a side hustle usually means that it's something that you do outside of your job to make money, but it has nothing to do with your normal everyday job or your day job. So for instance, some people drive Uber or Lyft, or they do DoorDash as a side hustle, or some people mow lawns as a side hustle. It's small things that aren't your career, but you just do to make extra money. A lot of people, they have side hustles selling their crafts or their artwork. Maybe they crochet things, or maybe they make beautiful paintings and they sell them on Etsy, or they sell them at a local craft fair. It's not their full-time job. It's not how they make all their money, but they make some extra money with it. Here, Dave Ramsey seems really kind of disgusted and kind of like appalled that the guy is calling this a side hustle, because it actually is a part of his father's business, and his father is entitled to the money. Now, my word that I'm adding in here is that John is very wishy-washy on his information. He keeps saying kind of. So he kind of is not telling the whole truth here. Like he's like, oh, this is totally my business. Well, your dad bought this machine and your dad, is entitled to the money. So it's not your business at all. That's what Dave Ramsey is telling him here. And that's why this clip is title that the 23-year-old is entitled. He thinks it's his money even though his dad invested in the equipment to make the money. If someone is being wishy-washy, it feels like they're not telling the truth, or they're not like making a decision or confidently describing something. They keep saying kind of, well, it's sort of my business, but Dave Ramsey keeps asking questions and he figures out that it's not a side hustle. It's not the 23-year-old's business at all. It's the father's who owns the complete business. And then just to add to the confusion here, Dave Ramsey said, well, what's the written agreement? You must have a written agreement. And a written agreement would be like something official or a contract that you have with someone. What's the official, who's supposed to be getting the money is what he's asking. And John, the caller, says, well, we don't have a written agreement. And Dave Ramsey seems really confused by this. Finally, Dave Ramsey's a bit harsh here. He says, you have nothing to do with it. This means you're not involved and you're not responsible for it. So if you say, I have nothing to do with that, I mean, you're not responsible for it. Maybe there's something that has gone wrong. You say, well, that wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. This means I didn't do that, or I'm not responsible for it. So now this podcast is getting interesting because we're learning that this 23-year-old thinks that he can make a lot more money if he wasn't working for his dad. But let's find out what Dave Ramsey has to say about it.
I agree with that.
And you don't own this. Okay. All right. So you said, hey, Dad, I think you ought to expand into this area, and I'm, as one of your employees, going to go do this, and you've helped him grow his business. Okay. I'm with you. Now, what's the problem?
So the problem is that going back to, like I said, that was, I'm going to call it a side hustle, his business, the marine thing. Mm-hmm. Back to my main problem is my every day-to-day operation job. We're kind of in a contracting field. I'm technically an installer, where I'm going out doing installs. Like I said, it's a 2 to 3 man job, most of them, but I'm doing it all by myself. I show up on a construction site. The GC says, how in the world are you going to get it done? And I get it done because I was born and raised in this and just know how to do it in a timely manner. But the problem lies where I'm seeing the profit coming in from that. And kind of my wife's idea is if I was my own installer for this stuff, I could basically pay my whole month's expenses for my family in 1 day of work.
So Dave seems a little bit frustrated with the caller here, and he says, I'm with you. This means I understand. Like, oh, I'm with you. So here he's frustrated. So he says, I'm with you. I've got it. Like, you're explaining the situation and you think you're entitled to money, but I understand it differently is basically what he's saying here. Again, the caller here says that, this is my day-to-day operation. So his job, and he says he can do it really well because he was born and raised doing it. Essentially, when we use this phrase, I was born and raised, it means like you've been doing it for so long, or it's basically been something that you've been around so long that it's just very natural to you. Maybe you have been playing soccer since you were little. You could say, I was born and raised a soccer player. Here he's saying, I was born and raised in this profession. And then he adds that he can do this job in a timely manner. This is actually a really professional and polite phrase to just say that you can do it quickly. Like, can you finish this job in a timely manner? This means, can you do it pretty quick without taking too much time? Or if you compliment someone saying, oh, you did that in such a timely manner, it means there was no delays and it exceeded my expectations of how much time it would actually take. So what are you thinking about this so far? Should he go out on his own and start his own company, or would that be a betrayal to his dad? Let's find out some more details, and let's find out what Dave thinks here in the next part of this clip.
I think I could do better if I was on my own, but it would be competing interest. And that's another thing is it ethical for me to open up my own competing company within that same field when we're the only ones in an 80-mile radius that do what we do?
No.
Tons of really natural, useful phrases in this clip. First, the caller says, could I do better on my own? I could do better on my own. So here he's saying, on my own, meaning not a part of my dad's company. So if you say, I'm going to start working on my own, it means on your own business. And if you say I could do better, it means I could make more money here. Here, when he's saying it's a competing interest, it means that he is competing basically against his dad, and it's not really ethical is what he says, because his dad got him started in the business, and Dave Ramsey is completely agreeing. He's saying, yeah, it is not ethical, meaning it is not moral, it is not good, it is not treating your father in a respectful way. So if someone asks, is this ethical? It means, is it respectful and is it moral? Or is it professional? So a lot of times we say in a workplace, it is not ethical for a boss to date one of their employees. And then the caller also says in the field. In the field is usually how we describe an area of interest, or we can say in a career field, or here we're talking about a very specific type of construction work in that field. So we're talking about something specific that's done when we're saying in the field. And then finally he says, we're the only two people that would do it in an 80-mile radius. When we use this phrase in English, we're talking about the idea of having a central point and then drawing a circle around it for 80 miles. There's no one else that does it, so him and his dad would be competing in a pretty small area for business. That's why we're saying it's a conflict of interest, or they're competing in the same field. It is not ethical. And Dave completely agrees here. He's kind of giving him the harsh truth. Let's go on to the last part of this clip.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
And the reason is what you're forgetting is you think you're only being paid for installing, or you think your company's only being paid for installing. Part of what your company's being paid for is your father's name and reputation and reliability that you had nothing to do with creating. You were running around in short pants while he was doing that.
That is true. I am third generation at the store, but a lot of two of our main.
Well, then your grandpa's reputation.
That is correct. And I understand.
So it's not as easy as you just walk out. If you move to another city with your tradesman expertise, I don't think you can duplicate this.
So two of our biggest clients right now, I'm actually the one that they came to first, and I built that reputation up for the company. I give them a call. I show up on time. I get the work done that I say I'm going to get done. And, I'm the one doing it all, even though they found us through his name, which I completely understand. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of just wanted some guidance.
I appreciate it, John. I'm going to love you enough to tell you the truth. I don't think you're giving enough credit to your father and your grandfather and the operations of this business. You think you're all that more than you are.
Dave is really harsh here in this clip to the 23-year-old. I think it's justified. You'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. I know sometimes it can be really difficult to work in a family business. I think this is a really common feeling, like you're doing all the work and you're not getting paid enough, but it's hard to ask because it's your family member who's running the business. So Dave says here, it's your father's name and reputation. When we talk about someone's name and reputation or respecting a name, it means that somebody has just a really credible image, or they've built a really credible company. They have never lied or been dishonest. So they've just built up a lot of respect within their field or within their business. And again, he uses that phrase, you have nothing to do with it. This is kind of telling him you are not responsible for all the credibility that your dad has built in the business. Then the caller explains that he's actually even third generation in this business. When we talk about being third, fourth, fifth, sixth generation, maybe in English, we mean that your parents or your grandparents or even further back have done it. So for instance, I'm a second generation farmer. Let's say someone says that. That means that either their father or their mother was a farmer before them. Or if they say I'm a third generation farmer, that means their grandfather or their grandmother was a farmer before them. So a lot of times it builds credibility in a business when you say I'm a second generation business owner. That means I'm the second person in my family, the second generation to actually own this business. So that in itself actually does build credibility in a business. When we talk about giving credit to someone, we mean giving them recognition or giving them respect for something that they've done here. So here, the caller, John, he's not giving enough credit to his family for the business that they built, is basically what Dave is saying. And the caller doesn't think that he gets enough credit for the hard work that he does. Sometimes people will say, I think I deserve credit. This means I think I deserve some recognition or whatever for getting something done or doing a good job. And finally, Dave says, you think you're all that and you're not. So you think you're all that. This phrase, it's kind of giving attitude. It can be taken very negative, meaning you think that you are really great and you're doing a lot and you deserve all the credit, but you're not there yet. You're criticizing someone for being overconfident if you say, well, you just think you're all that. So you're saying you think you're the best, but you're really not. I know you guys love these types of English lessons. I have more just like this where we learn English from real podcasts and real clips on the internet. Make sure to check out the next video on screen, and to get more information about the phrases in this lesson and learn with me every single week in my membership, make sure to use the link below or visit EnglishWithKayla.com. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next lesson. Goodbye.